hair just never cooperates. Again,
No.
it's that this is 40s thing when
Yeah. Hi,
all of a sudden you have a new hair texture and like it doesn't lay right. And
Hi, I'm old.
yeah, exactly. Hi, I'm old and this is my face and hair. Well, I did get my Botox done since the last episode, so like I can't really make the mad face as much. My WTF
Yeah.
lines are not as deep
Not
as they were,
Yeah.
so that's a good thing
Yeah. Well, there you
for
go.
all parties.
Yeah. There
Yeah.
you go. That's a good thing.
Yeah, I feel like it is. I mean, that's a win. And then my poor husband, he decided because I had been mentioning that I needed to get my Botox redone. So he thought he was doing really good and went and got me a gift certificate for my Botox where I go. I had been in there 2 days before that. So there's that. So, but next time it's covered.
But next time it's covered.
Yeah,
so
next time.
see, it was still,
Yeah.
it's the gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, it really is for his benefit also.
Yeah.
I feel like that's how I justify the expense to myself is I'm doing this for him.
Yeah.
I mean, although he's a lot older than me, so I'm already the young wife. So
You're the trophy.
I wouldn't say that. It's like one of those like Dundee Awards or something. Your trophy wife is really a Dundee Award.
Oh, God.
It's kind of like a backhanded compliment. Here, you won this. She's neurotic, a workaholic, has an attitude, and she brings with her 2 kids that are exactly like her.
Yeah.
Here you go.
Yeah. It's like a
No
paper
wonder he
plate
stays in the garage
It's a
all the
paper
time.
plate award. Like, congrats, you got married.
Yeah, yeah. Yay, aren't you glad you waited 40 years for this? I'm kind of at that stage, though. And I was telling somebody this the other day. I'm like, okay, I met Clint when he was 40, and our youngest is now 12. So I kind of feel like I'm on the downhill. I really only have like 6 more years of like a potential baby mama out there coming in for child support or something, or like a surprise, I am your father kind of moment. And so I'm like, okay, just 6 more years of no babies coming out of the woodwork from your single days, and I think I'll be good. The way my mind works is a little bit.
It's twisted, but it's funny.
Yeah, it's
fun to live there.
I mean, I have that going for me.
Yeah.
I think, I was thinking about it yesterday because I had an agent that I was interviewing, and she's brand new. Actually, she hasn't even gotten her license yet. She takes her test on the 4th. And she's like, what do you think makes a good agent? Like, what characteristics do you have to have? And one of the first things I told her is a sense of humor.
Yeah.
Because things are never, ever going to work out how you think they will. And you are going to be put in some of the most embarrassing situations humanly possible, whether it's a wardrobe malfunction or you in my case, saying the absolute wrong thing at the moment, because my sense of humor is a little dry. And not everybody gets that. But I mean, if you can't laugh at things, you will fail so quickly in this business. I mean, there's a time for being serious, of course. But I mean, a little sense of humor can diffuse some really terrible situations in this business. So, there's one. What would you say are 5 things that you have to have in this business really to be successful?
Well, definitely a sense of humor. It's definitely one. I do think that you need a little bit of a thick skin. So you can't.
Like an elephant.
Yeah, like a rhino.
Mhm.
Like you can't. I mean, you're going to hear no so much, and you're going to hear so many negative things all the time that you can't let it get to you. I think you have to be able to compartmentalize. I think that is like a skill that a lot of people don't even know is a skill.
Mhm.
I can literally get off the phone with a client that is driving me absolutely crazy, and then get on the phone with a client that I absolutely love, and they have no idea that like I was just screaming the F word like into a pillow because that client makes me want to light my hair on fire.
Mhm.
And I think that being able to do that and not letting everything affect your entire like persona. Like, I mean, things bleed into each other and that happens. Like everybody has bad days, but you can't have a bad day every day. So I think professionalism, it's not always fun and games. I think there's, you have to have a level of professionalism, and I think you have to have a level of creativity,
Absolutely.
in whatever respect that is for you, but you have to have some level of creativity. Drive is not something that can be created. It's something that's within you and you have or you don't. And if you don't have it, then it's probably not the field for you. Like you're just not passionate about what you're doing. And that plays into the creativity because when you're driven and you're excited and you're passionate, your creativity, your
Mm-hmm.
wheels are like spinning. You're like, oh, can I do this? And like, it's been really awesome to see that in one of my agents, Justin. He is, guys are so different than girls in general. But it's been really awesome to see him in the past, I'd say like 6 to 8 months, like really, really kind of step into this like creative brain. Like he's constantly wanting to mastermind and think of things to be different and get out there. And, he's kind of figured out like this is kind of the niche I want to be in. And so he's trying to figure out how to nurture that and he's working on that. And I think that's such an awesome place for him to be and somewhere where I think that he is starting to come into his own, and I think it's amazing to see him get to that point.
Yeah, and the confidence that kind of comes with getting to that point.
Yeah, and so what's really awesome is he came to me and he said there's another agent in the office and the agent's newer. Like not like new to the business, like completely new. And was coming to him and saying, "Hey, will you just look over this contract?" And one, it's flattering to have someone ask you that, but secondly, he was like, "No, you should change this. No, you should do that. Have you done this? Have you called the lender to make sure that they, that all their documents are approved and asked if they're desktop underwritten and all these things?" And the agent was just like so mind blown, and he was like, and Justin was like, "That was a really good feeling." And I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "I'm confident in where you are. Like you are stepping into your own confidence level." And it's really awesome to see. So it can take time. Creativity takes time, but it's something that you have to have somewhere in you and be willing to. You can't have someone giving it to you all the time.
No, I feel like that's one thing you can develop within yourself, but if you just at the end of the day don't have it, then you just don't.
I mean, so much of our job is marketing.
If that's something that you just don't have, you need to be able to leverage out and get it. And that's where I see some strength in certain teams is because they can acknowledge who is what. Like some people are really great rainmakers. They're great at just getting out there and like driving and fueling and bringing in the leads, but they suck at everything else, so
know your place.
Yeah, know what your strengths are and really like hone in on those. But I do think that for individual agents, yeah, they have to be creative. Although I was seeing now that there are bots that can write your listing descriptions for you. And I know you and I have talked about before how much of a kind of pain it is to write those and like come up with all the flowery adjectives and like ways to describe the house that's maybe not as great as we would love it to be.
Yeah.
So I think being able to be self-aware on what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are, but also being driven to constantly get better on those weaknesses. Like, I think that I see so many agents who are satisfied, like, with the bare minimum education. And you see them all the time on Facebook or, different platforms. And it's a month before their license expires. And they're like, what online school can I go to get all my CE hours in a package? Do you really think you're going to learn anything if you're trying to take all these hours that quickly because you have to? Versus like, hey, I feel like I'm kind of weak on farm and ranch and there's a class coming up that I can go to
Sure.
and learn. or, outside marketing classes, different things that are not real estate specific.
Mm-hmm.
I see agents all the time and they're just happy knowing like the bare minimum.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, one, when you get your license, you don't know how to do anything. Like you can identify a township, but you don't know how to fill out a contract. You don't know how to market yourself. You don't know how to
No.
do anything
No.
that's
Most agents don't even know what, I mean, in Texas, we use Zip Logic. So it's like most agents don't even know what Zip Logics are. They don't know what RPR is. They don't have a clue. I will say that TR did come out with a course for brand new agents that is super helpful. It used to be called Realtor Bootcamp, and I think it's called Realtor Launch now. I think that's what it's called. But anyway, it's like a 4-day course, and it's not a joke. I think it's 4 days. But anyway, but it teaches them the stuff that like the minutia that it's like the bare basics to get yourself up and running. Like how to create your template. What forms do you need to write an offer? Like all that stuff when you walk into a broker and you're a brand new agent and the broker spends days and days and days trying to work with you on and your Facebook compliance and you're in all of the things that we have to do. So I will say that course is super great for that. Not great for an agent like you or I, but really great for the brand new agent because you are just completely clueless. Unless you were licensed in another state and you moved to Texas and you had some sort of idea of real estate contracts or real estate in general, like you are completely clueless. You walk into your first day in real estate and you don't even know your ass from your head. Like you don't have a clue.
No. And the thing is, like, and I tell people, I'm like, even if you got a deal handed to you on the first day, you wouldn't know what to do with it.
No.
Like everything from even operating the e-key to open a damn lockbox. Do you know how many times I've gotten calls from agents like, hey, I'm out at a showing and I don't know how to open the lockbox? Like, I really feel like, and I'm sure I'll get hate for it, I don't care, that the licensing in Texas needs to be like completely redone. The courses, everything, because we're teaching so much crap that you'll never use.
Yeah.
You will never, ever use some of this stuff. And then the very real stuff that you need to know that could bite you in the ass at any given time is not taught.
It's almost
And
like GRI should be your licensing. Like, like, I mean, I got licensed and then immediately took GRI because it satisfies your SAE.
You're like, oh, I didn't know anything. You're like nothing.
Yeah, you're like, oh, huh, that's so different.
Yeah.
I mean, because in Texas, which is different from, DC where I'm from, what's interesting in DC is like that many of the commercial buildings don't own the land that they're on. So my first deal, I think I said this before, my first deal was a land contract. And I was like, what is this? I'm like, what are oil rights? Like, what's an ag district? Like, what is this? Like, so I didn't know what any of those things were. And no one tells you any of that. And there's a lot of focus in the beginning on 1 to 4, which is the basics of what we do. But then there's land, there's farm and ranch, there's commercial, there's unimproved versus improved, there's new construction contracts, there's all this stuff. And it's just, we don't they don't teach those. And there's not enough classes for all the other forms. Like we're just supposed to like inherently know about all these forms. And there's thousands of forms, thousands that we could be using. And there's agents don't know what we don't know. And so it's like there's not, in my opinion, enough education on in your template, this is what you should have, and territory based. There's tidewater restrictions.
And municipal utility districts. Some cities have a bunch of them, some don't have any at all.
Yeah, or PUDs, or there's even stuff like, Oakville. There's not a form for Oakville, but so many people have the same verbiage, Oakville.
Well, I think that they, have kind of covered that in the general information.
Yeah.
And notice to buyers and sellers. So that is included. And I think that document,
most people
they kind of drafted as the catch-all to agents not being taught what they needed to know.
Well, my thing is if you're in a territory that has Oakville, just because we were talking about that, part of your buyer due diligence should probably have an arborist out to identify whether any of those trees have oak wilt or
Mhm.
not, because that is a cost and that does affect the potentially, depending on what the property looks like, the beauty of the property in general. Like if you're
Oh,
cutting
yeah.
down like 7 trees and they're huge and the makes the backyard go from a shaded backyard to a sunny backyard,
Yeah, but
you
you have a
know,
cool tree stump table.
right. It's like, you could have a bunch of
Yeah.
little gnomes out there, but that's the problem. Like I
Mhm.
almost feel like it's great that we have a catch-all. How many people are using that form? How
We
many people
require
go,
it.
yeah, I mean,
But the thing is, with any form, how many agents send a packet of documents to their buyer or seller and don't explain any of them?
oh, like 90% of agents, I would
Like,
say.
these people, just like you and I, open up a document, usually on your phone, and tap to
Yep.
sign and be done.
Yep.
And so, I look at some of these contracts and they're binding their client legally on a document that is not completed correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, so I end up sending it back and like, hey, I don't even feel comfortable sending this to my client right now. You need to complete your offer
Yeah.
so that we know full terms because this is not okay.
Yeah.
And then I get the call, well, I meant to have that in the contract.
What you meant and what is
You meant
there.
to, and there was space for it, but you didn't do it.
Right.
So you can now send an amendment and we might sign it
Yeah.
or we might not.
Right.
It's
It's fascinating to me. I mean, the amount that we want to tout as a non-reciprocal state and non-reciprocal meaning we don't accept licenses from other states, that we are the biggest and the best when it comes to education. But we're not educating our new agents on how to actually do anything. We're not teaching them about the forms. We're relying on the brokers to do all of that.
And half of the brokers are terrible.
Yeah.
Let's be real. I mean, I work with so many brokers who are lazy
Mm-hmm.
and just awful about anything. You can't get them on the phone. You can't do anything. So, like, I don't know.
I think it's just frustrating because, you want to, there's that scare tactic of, oh, TR and TREC and you're going to get turned in and lawsuit, which is all extremely real. I mean, extremely real. And we can get sued for you can bankrupt us. I mean, it is significant. But at the same token, you fall flat on educating the agents on everything that there is to be had. And I think that's where it's great. I mean, I have 9 designations or something like that. And I'm working on my 10th. Like, I mean, I have a lot and I choose to have a lot and I choose to educate myself. But that's because I don't want to be caught in a situation where someone's like, you're an idiot, you didn't do this.
Right.
Or you don't know how to fill out this form, or I didn't even know that form existed. Like, I often will go through just in my free time, I will go through ZipLogics and just kind of scroll through the forms and just see what's in there. Just because there's new stuff added and
all the time. I
and
mean, we're coming into a new year. Those forms have changed.
They've changed. And I mean, there's some interesting stuff and there's some stuff I wish they would put in there. Like I wish they would put stuff about Airbnbs in there, but there's some interesting changes coming to the forms and our agents educating themselves and our brokers, which is our responsibility, our brokers bringing these up to the agents and saying, hey, read through this. We're going to discuss it. Like, have them fill out a contract by hand. Like,
right.
And
give them like a scenario. And this is what I do with mine that come in. And, I have a long written kind of case study sort of thing. And like, okay, here's what it needs to be. Fill it out. Let's see what you know and what you don't know first.
Right.
And then we'll kind of go from there. But I mean, even my agents who have been in business 6-7 years, when we have a serious contracts class going through paragraph by paragraph by paragraph, it's amazing what they don't realize is in there, or what they don't realize. Okay, this paragraph corresponds with this paragraph, and this is a buyer out. They just don't know. They know only the paragraphs with the blanks that they need to fill out.
Yeah.
And not any of the others. And I'm like, oh, okay.
It was like the last time I took Reba Saxon's class. She writes that book, the buyer out book. And every time that book comes out, I buy it. Because she's always finding something.
Yeah. And it's usually because it's happened the hard way.
Yeah.
Because if a buyer wants out bad enough, 9 times out of 10, they'll take it to an attorney and they will find a way out.
Yeah.
It just is what it is. I just think, and like the other day, and you saw it on Instagram, somebody told me that they know everything they need to know.
Like literally, I think that was the quote.
Yeah. Everything they need to know about helping their clients. Yeah. And I think that is the saddest thing that I have heard in a really long time, because if you honestly are so arrogant to think that you know everything that you need to know or could possibly need to know to serve a client, you are the biggest idiot in the room and you just don't know it.
It was rough. So her let's see,
it just, I don't know. And that's when I knew it just wasn't worth arguing.
Well, and I think there was a conversation too that was a miss, right? So probably didn't listen to the whole episode.
No.
But also like taking a mentor and a coach to be the same thing. And
yeah, they're different.
They're different.
Right.
And I think that they said that, that they were, they were both or whatever. But I just found it to be so interesting that she feels that coaches outside of the industry are completely useless. And yeah. And coaches and mentors outside this industry don't offer me anything I don't know and nothing that actually give value to my client.
Okay.
In caps.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, then goes on to say lots about, how a realtor and a recruiter, but not a coach, but also said that she likes to mentor and coach other agents. So that was a little confusing, but
yeah, it's always interesting to see what comments are on TikTok or Instagram or whatever. But I just, and I'm never one usually to shy away from ruffling feathers or creating a little bit of a stir. Doesn't matter to me. But the difference is I'll back up my position.
Yeah.
But like I said, when I figure out that I'm talking to somebody that doesn't know what they're talking about,
yeah,
then I'm just like done. I'm like, this is just not even worth the effort. Like if you're bantering back and forth with me and you have a point and you strongly believe in it and you can justify it to me, like I can come around or at least respect your stance.
Your side, yeah.
But when you make a blanket statement like that, I'm just like, you just made, any credibility you would have had with me, which, I mean, as a broker in a small-ish town, we know the names and we know who people are with and what they're doing. And the credibility would not have been there anyway.
Right.
But that stream of comments, I was just like, oh, dear Lord, baby Jesus. Like,
well, and
I feel sorry for your clients that you know everything right now at this stage in your career.
And you're never going to learn anything from anybody, but you can teach everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And
I think that's what's funny is that those are usually the people that say they can. Like right now, my biggest fan on TikTok is somebody that proclaims to hate my guts, but watches me every single day.
Haters are our biggest fans.
Oh, she is. She's a real dime. We'll say that. But watches my stuff and she proclaims to be a coach. And I'm like, really? Like, to who? To who are you coaching?
To whom? To
Yeah,
whom?
to whom? Who is taking your advice? I mean, like, I don't know, that whole thing, and I think sometimes it's like a ploy that brokers will use to just pacify somebody.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you're unhappy here. Well, why don't we put you in coaching? Like you can mentor other people. And I get that a lot of people have like a great heart and want to help.
Yeah.
But when it comes to like coaching, you better really be able to step up and provide something of value.
And it's not just, hey, you filled out this contract wrong, or hey,
No.
this blank was missing. Like, you need to know a lot about different personalities and how those personalities interact with others and how to diffuse that person. And you need to know a lot about people.
Yeah. And I think it's more than a John Maxwell course. Like,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but I don't think that qualifies somebody really. I mean, I want somebody that's in it. I want somebody that's in the business or in a business and has something of real value. Mentors are great to help you really in our business. You need a mentor that is in our business that can help you with contracts and kind of take you under their wing to listing appointments or buyer's appointments or whatever and really show you the ropes. And I can mentor people, but I don't proclaim to be a coach ever.
Yeah, no.
Like that's outside of my role. It's not what I do.
Right.
But yeah, I just think that was the most asinine thread of conversation I've had in a while.
Well, and it's like, it's drinking that Kool-Aid. It's that structure of how that brand runs is that this is the way. This is the way that's the only way you're going to be successful. This is the only way that is going to be it. We're the it. And I find that so hard to become a part of because I'm like, it's very culty and I don't like that cult mentality is very hard for me to have any sort of buy-in or respect for. If you work for that brokerage and you're a good person, like that's one thing, but as a business model, having that Kool-Aid effect on people is not something that I would ever want because then it is like what we've talked about. Like it is that confirmation bias. Like you're only ever going to see that way. You're not going to see another way. And when I did TRLP, Candy Cook again, she did our leadership class and it was one of my favorite classes. And she had us write who would be at if we had a board of directors, who would be at our board of directors. And I remember, again, this is just our personality. We're not afraid to offend anybody, apparently. So I had, we had to go around and say our board of directors and why. And, there's a lot of people that put things like, put God and everything else. And here's Cate over here. I put Adolf Hitler.
Oh, shit, Cate. Jesus.
So he was on my board of directors. And I also had, I had who my mom used to work for, which is a retired 4-star admiral. Like I had former director of the CIA. Like,
are you trying to get our whole thing canceled already? Like, I'm just asking.
So here's the thing.
I'm sure there's a good reason, but we should probably get to it.
So here's why. So yes, probably of all time, one of the most evil human beings that ever lived. But if I'm a history buff, and if you study history, what is fascinating about Adolf Hitler is that he was a poor nobody that started going to like an underground bar, gambling, and just started brainwashing everybody, an entire country and multiple other countries, and brainwashed people into believing what he wanted to believe. I mean, if you want to talk about influencers, he is the OG. Like, he was it.
Yeah.
And the amount of power behind that, and some of it was 100% fear. People didn't do it because they loved him all the time. They did it out of fear. But if you take the evil part out and you see what he did as just a, like, sociology experiment.
Right.
It is so interesting that one person can have that much power and influence over that many people to even get it down to him wanting to perfect genetics in what his mind was a perfect genetic human. with the blonde hair and the blue eyes and and these types of facial features. Like he wasn't just about prejudice or being against Judaism. Like he was doing genetic testing. He was trying to figure out if aliens were real. Like he's a fascinating, that whole movement was very fascinating. And he had some
I think
brilliant.
it's scary. It's how easily people were influenced by that.
But my question is, and it's a lot of people's question is, not a lot of people have figured out how he did it.
Mm-hmm.
Because he wasn't somebody that was in power. He wasn't a known human.
Mm-hmm.
He was a nobody that came out of nowhere and started this huge regime and got extremely brilliant people to work with him and to make these inventions. So for me, that's the mentality. That's the scary thing, that some of these, and it's not just brokerages, it's other businesses too, that you drink this Kool-Aid into thinking that like they're the be all end all.
Mm-hmm.
And that is why I put him on my board of directors, not because he is probably the most evil person that I can think of that existed, but because if you think of that as how people are influenced.
If you could harness that ability for good versus evil.
Correct.
And really tune into what makes somebody buy into you to that level.
Right. Like ultimate, and not out of fear, but like ultimate trust, ultimate, this is it. This person is so brilliant. And it's so interesting because there's followings of anybody. I mean, Elon Musk, like people follow him and think he's like a god, treat him like that. The way he thinks about things, the way he does things. I mean, and he is brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
But how easily people as a whole can be influenced.
Yeah.
Is fascinating.
The problem, I think, is most people that are truly, truly, truly brilliant like that are also a little crazy.
Oh, 100%.
Just in general, I mean, like Howard Hughes. And, if you look at a lot of the brilliance throughout history, it was a little nutty too.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Not in ways like that to where it was just maniacally evil.
Yeah.
But just in general, it's kind of a balance. I do think that in real estate, you do have it to where certain companies are very cultish, and that's okay. But what I find funny is these same companies act like their culture and all of that is their number one thing, but they're all sliding into my DMs and my text messages now like, hey, end of year numbers are coming out and we think you'd be a great fit for our team. Really? So that's all it takes to join your team? It isn't you want to know who I am as a person and if I would culturally fit? And you didn't bother to look at the fact that I was with your company before and left. I think if I had one big ick in real estate, it would be the whole recruiting model. If you tell me, just like in that comment on Instagram, that you're a recruiter for your company, for me, honestly, respect is gone. Yeah. I just can't believe a single thing you say at that point because you are financially incentivized. Kind of like we talked about before with, the monetization of people to where you don't trust what they're selling you because they're incentivized by it. And that's kind of how I feel about it. If you have to pay teams of people to go out and bring in more, it just makes me question. And maybe it's my cynical, brain, but it's just not, I'm just not the numbers girl, the volume girl, as far as wanting the bigger company for that reason. And I get all the text messages and emails from different recruiters all over. And it's so apparent to me that they don't even bother to Google search. They're only looking at your MLS output numbers. And I'm like...
And if they're part, you're not just a part of one MLS. So, are they looking at all your MLSs?
Right. And if you Google search, you would know I own a brokerage and that I'm a broker. I'm not just an agent looking for, the next big thing. And so sometimes, if I'm just extra bored, I have an extra 20 minutes, I'll screw with them to see, how little they know about me or whatever. And I just don't... it's just such a slimy part of the industry. It's kind of
Yeah.
like, to me, the awards. Oh, congratulations, you've been nominated for such and such award. And to be in the running, you need to pay like $400. If I've got to pay you for an
Yeah.
award, it's not an award.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be featured in your magazine for some award that wasn't an award.
Right.
If you want to give me an award because of my merit-based activities, like things that I did, people I helped, anything that is of like actual proof of what I've accomplished, fine.
Yeah.
I'm not going
I'm
to
all in.
like jump into these things like, oh, you've tentatively been chosen. No,
Yeah.
no.
I'm
We're-
out.
That's what we're not going to do. Oh, you've been chosen to be featured in Forbes magazine as like one of Texas's best agents or whatever, but you need to pay like $1,200.
Mm-hmm.
No,
Yeah.
sorry, not doing it. I mean, if you want me to place an ad and just tell me that it's an ad,
An advertorial.
fine.
Yeah.
but I think you also lose credibility as an agent. Like when people find out that it wasn't really an award, you paid to be given an award, basically.
Yeah.
Like it just, I don't know. I get why some consumers and people outside of our industry think that it's a slimy industry sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
because it is.
Mm-hmm.
Like it just, gives me the heebie-jeebies sometimes.
I mean, there's this one team that constantly, like consistently will text message me. And I'll ask them, we think that you'd be a great fit, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, what do you know about me?
Mm-hmm.
How did you find me? What's the number one quality you think I have that would fit you? And they don't even respond.
Mm-mm.
And it's just like, then it's just like you're a number.
Mm-hmm.
They want your number, but you are a number. Like you mean nothing. And so when I have gone after agents because I want them to join me, it's because I've dealt with them and I like their personality.
Right, exactly.
And I think I see something in them that, I really believe in, but I'm not looking at their like number, because
Mm-mm.
it could be they're not thriving at that company because it's just not the right fit for them, or they don't have the, they don't know where to go or whatever. But it's usually because it's personality based and it has very little to do to nothing with their number itself. Because
Right, absolutely.
I want to work with people that I like. And
Yeah.
I don't want to work with a bunch of people that
Yeah.
piss me off.
No.
Like,
And I'm not risking my license
no.
for a bunch of people that could be ethical, could not, could be
Right.
terrible freaking human beings, could not. No, I don't know. I look at some companies and I'm like, no wonder they employed disposable brokers. Is because at some point that broker may lose their license because
Mhm.
they just take anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think it's crazy. Like everything is going crazy. And I feel like all of the big companies right now are kind of cannibalizing
Yeah.
against each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like,
I think we're going to start seeing one of my other number one, icks in real estate is that, we're the number one real estate brokerage. How many times do you have to see in the top 1% of the MLS or number one brokerage and whatever? Like, I mean, literally, I'll see a billboard after billboard where it's like number one, number one, number one. I'm like,
how many number
how many
ones are
number
there?
ones are
Yeah.
there? And what does that even mean? Like, we're boutique brokerages, so we don't have a ton of agents. So, but the agencies that are number one, it's because they have 200 or 300 or 400 or 500 or thousands of agents. So no shit, Sherlock. Like, of course you're going to be number one or up
Yeah.
there because you have a bajillion agents producing those numbers for you.
Well, and the problem is you might have a bajillion agents, but only 100 are actually producing,
Yeah.
or 200. And of those, some of them are like 5 to 10 person teams.
Yeah.
It just, I don't know. But I think that they're all so dead set on taking each other down.
Oh.
And like they've all talked for years and years and years about the abundance mindset.
Mhm.
And now they do things that are in direct contradiction to that.
Yeah.
And you're just like, what? Like, Compass is a huge company and they do things a little bit differently. They're a very fast-growing company too,
Yeah.
but everybody wants to act like they're just going to disappear in 2023.
Yeah.
And I'm like, they're not making money because they've invested so much in their tech platforms
Mm-hmm.
and different things. I mean, they've made some moves that I'm like, head scratchers, but I think they're very calculated
I think they are too.
in what they're doing. And I think that they know kind of what they're doing. They only work with certain agents. They're not the company that's just bringing on everybody like this vacuum, like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, you're licensed and have a pulse, come here.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they're going to be an interesting one to watch in 2023. I don't think they're going down in flames by any means. I think that, the whole rivalry between KW and EXP is insane because they're basically the same. I mean, let's be real. They're like brothers, and one became a doctor, one became a lawyer, and
Brother from a different mother.
now they're competing at Christmas on who gets to be the favorite.
Yeah.
Like it just, but, putting policies in place that are directly against how you build.
Yeah.
I mean, like you sent me the article about EXP now basically putting a 2-year non-compete on agents that leave that they can't recruit from within. So if they are a team, they can't take their team with them if they leave. Well, that's how they built their business.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like every agent I know has been approached by their agents wanting to recruit
Mm-hmm.
from other companies. And I know they went heavy after KW. It's no secret in the industry. It's not, I'm not saying it's a good thing, bad thing, or anything else. It was just their model.
Sure.
And so now I think it's just funny that
Well, it's so
now they're like,
interesting.
oh no, now you can't do that to us. Turnaround isn't fair play. We're not going to do that.
Well, and it's
I'm
so
like,
interesting because it's in their P&P, and it is that time. It's that time of year.
mhm.
Brokerages should be coming out with their new year P&P. There's probably some changes in it. And I read a lot of the comments, and there were so many people defending it, saying that, this person that had posted it was bashing them. But I did not read the post as bashing. I read it
No.
as,
And I'm not bashing them.
No,
I just think it's funny that
it's an interesting platform.
yeah.
And I think that agents don't read their P&P, and for lack of a better term, they're not reading their ICAs either, which is their
no.
independent contractor agreement, because companies like big box companies are not going to use the few page ICA that
The Texas Realtors.
that TR provides. They're going to have an attorney write that up.
Mhm.
So before you sign anything, you should have that reviewed by an attorney so you understand what you are signing. In DC and Virginia, when we've had non-competes before, they don't really hold up in court because you're preventing somebody from working.
Mhm.
But what's interesting is that's employment law, so that's W-2. I don't know what it's like in Texas, and I don't know what how that would work for a 1099, but could that even stand up? I don't know. Where a lot of people are saying, they don't come after people for that. And I'm like, it's not that they don't, it's that they haven't yet.
Yeah.
But they have
I think
they're
if they
giving
lose a big enough, high value enough team,
Mm-hmm.
they will.
Sure.
And that's the thing. And I think the timing, like a few people said, is suspicious that, you give it the week after Christmas
Mm-hmm.
and expect it signed by early in January. I mean, people are traveling. We're like on Christmas hangover and trying to
Yeah.
get an attorney to really watch out for your best interest and look at these documents to make sure that, you're not going to get caught up in something. 2 years in real estate is a long time.
Yeah.
Lots of things change with different brokerage platforms and their offerings and just the business as a whole. So
Sure.
to say that I know exactly where I want to be in 2 years, for like the normal agent, that's a lot.
Well, and it's just say they lost a big team head, right? So
Mhm.
someone that was a mass producer, and then some other agents came with them. Even on a smaller scale, you see that, where if you leave a brokerage, that brokerage immediately calls every contact that they can find of yours. I mean, when, so many agents will often say, oh, we love working together. The truth of the matter is that agents typically are hateful towards each other. Do I like that? No,
No.
I hate how hateful agents are. I
Mm-hmm.
hate how ugly
And
we,
adversarial. Like
yeah,
it's me versus you. We're trying
yeah,
to get to the same closing
yeah.
table.
At the end of the
Like
day,
our
it's not,
clients want the same thing. We want you to
yeah,
buy the house and we want to sell it.
yeah.
You
Like,
know?
I want my client to be happy. You want your client to be happy. We want referrals. Like, hope your
Mm-hmm.
client gives you a lot. Like,
Yeah.
like I hate that it's, there are certain agents that it's like, man, I really hate their advertising. And so I'm like, I get the like, ugh, when I see
Yeah.
something that they put out there. But do I hate them as a person? No. Do I try and make their life a living hell? Also,
Mm-mm.
no. But firsthand that when you leave a brokerage, they'll often call every client you have. And so, what would put it against someone who has in their ICA that you can't recruit out of their company or take your team with you, that they're not immediately going to go talk to that team and scare them into staying out of something else, some other little line item that they
Mm-hmm.
signed or whatever? Because at the end of the day, you don't own your clients. You don't own
Mm-mm.
your
They
buyers.
belong to your
They
broker.
belong to your broker.
Mm-hmm.
So, and
I think that's something that most agents don't understand
like,
is you don't own any of the business that you did there.
and the thing and it's like you put agents in an awkward position because if they do want to leave, it's also against
Mm-hmm.
our code of ethics to then tell that client,
Mm-hmm.
hey, I'm switching brokerages. If you want to continue working with me, you're going to have to
Right.
terminate. Like, it's also like they have pitted us against each other on purpose.
Yeah.
So it's like we're in a lose-lose situation. It might not be a good fit for us, but that client is somebody that we earned their business from, most likely. They trust us. But when you leave, we're not allowed to have that conversation because we don't
Yeah.
own the client. And so that's what a lot of people don't realize is like they've from the get-go, you are pitted against your broker if you ever choose to leave, your managing broker. So what's to say that if you wanted to leave and you're not allowed to take your team, they wouldn't do the same thing? Because what they're saying is that they own your team.
I think the bigger threat really is that a company of that size, if you say your team, you don't recruit your team, okay? You leave, you flat out tell your team like, hey, sorry, I've got to make this move for me. I'm going over here. And your team chooses on their own to do it. A company that size has enough money to fund a legal battle to make your
bury you.
existence hell for the next however long. Even if they know they will lose, they can drag you through so many courtrooms for this clause in their ICA that you will wish you could just walk into a different industry.
Yeah.
They will make your life hell. And I think that's the bigger kind of overwhelming threat with a company that size is if they deem your business to be enough value to them, or say it's somebody that they know also recruited 500 agents in their downline or whatever. If they were charismatic to recruit those 500 agents for you, what are the chances they can recruit those 500 agents away from you? And you're seeing it a lot because now, it was KW first and then EXP was born and now Real is born. Well, Real has been born out of EXP, so they're all kind of floating the same direction.
All these cloud-based brokerages, they're all just babying off of each other, just grabbing what they can. It's low caps, it's no office fees, it's, either you pay, your split becomes very attractive or you're paying very little to the brokerage after you cap, or you're getting 100% of your commission. And
well, I think all three of those are actually higher caps than a lot. But I think the difference is they're pulling people in on their residual income opportunities.
Correct.
From the continuous recruiting and, their pyramid scheme kind of thing.
And,
and
whatever.
All of that. So I think I don't know. But I mean, they all want to badmouth each other, but
But they also
they're
get
like
that,
triplets.
yeah, they get that, like, I think one of them, it's like you get to, I guess maybe they don't call it a cap, but they call it something, but you get like,
Your icon level.
yes,
Yeah.
where it's like
You get your money back.
but then you get a kickback.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, so really you cap anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's 10 grand or something like that. So really, in all theory, that's a low cap.
Mm-hmm.
And from what I've seen from these cloud-based brokerages, the caps are somewhere between 10 and 15. And they're saying, that we're going to provide you leads and we'll provide you training and we're going to provide you this and that.
Mm-hmm.
And when I've talked to a few agents that are at these cloud-based brokerages, there's a couple of things that I recognize that they have told me. One is lonely. There is something to be said for camaraderie in an office, or actually being able to be a part of a brokerage that has like a pulse. They might have a local office, but when you're part of the cloud, you might not be affiliated with your local office. You might be an office based out of, a territory
Right.
that's 5 territories away.
Well, and what I see is the times that I see them together, they're at lunch and learns
Yeah.
to try to recruit more people.
Yeah.
It's not ever like, hey, we're doing tours of homes, or, we're having a team meeting to learn this or whatever. It's like, and I'm saying this as somebody like, look, I've worked for EXP before. I've worked for KW before. Real, I have not. But in some of the same ways, they're alike. Like my, I guess, team leader at EXP, I only ever talked to if he was texting to ask who I might know that we could bring to a lunch and learn, or to, this, that, or the other, or who do we know that might come over to the company. Well, that's not a leader. That's a recruiter. And now I look at that same person and I think all he does is recruit. I don't know that he's active in sales at all anymore.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the model that I see some of these companies going to, where they bring in these powerhouse recruiters instead of agents. So you think you're getting a mentor because they promise you, oh yeah, I'll mentor you and this, that, and the other. And you're like, oh, they're great.
Yeah.
And then you're kind of left stranded once you're there. But you're an avatar. And like, if you can figure out which way you're going on this cloud campus, you're like, great. It even has a beach. And you're like, oh,
yeah,
great. Like I don't know. I mean, and it's, I'm not saying it's a wrong model. I'm not saying it's, anybody's bad for choosing it. Everybody has to go their own way and find their own fit.
Yeah.
And I think for a lot of people, it's an amazing option. It just wasn't for me.
Well, and I think there's some like hybrid models that are coming out, where you can choose to be in their cloud-based model, or you can choose to be in their brick and mortar model. And, I think that there is something to be said that traditional brokerages need to figure out how to level up to the point of giving some of what the freedoms that cloud-based offers. And the very, very traditional models of like step tier commissions and stuff like that is going to die off, because why would I pay a 50-50 split when I can go get an 80-20 split and be doing whatever I want? And they'll say, well, then you don't get the mentoring and you don't get this and you don't get that. But on the flip side, I have seen people, at Fathom Realty, which is another one, which they just pay a transaction fee. But he has a team, and when he recruits and brings people on his team, they're on a 50-50 split regardless. They always are. That's never changing.
And
That
that's pretty traditional with any sort of team.
yeah, and so he he doesn't change that, and that's fine. But he also has the power backing of the tech and the transaction coordinator and the marketing and stuff from the cloud base. So he has, like, his whole team has that. So they have listing coordinators and transaction coordinators and all of this stuff that many brokerages only offer at a fee. Whereas many of the cloud base are offering them basically at a transaction fee, which is not the same, not paying a monthly fee. They're just they pay it if you want a transaction coordinator on that file.
Right.
Great. Here's your $200 fee. And so that's what you get. So I just find it to be very interesting, and it's going to be very interesting to see what brokerages can not, it's like we've talked about old guard versus, Gen Z, and millennials and everything else, where old school brokerages start making changes. Like, I think that, I mean, you and I talked about the not old luxury brands, but like, the very high end international luxury brands that have kind of stuck to just what they've always done. And
Mhm.
I mean, they do like $1 billion properties and they market them just fine. But I've also seen many agents starting to leave that industry and going to smaller boutiques or cloud-based because they're not giving them as much
Mhm.
as going somewhere else.